On today's episode of 32 Bar Cut, we are talking about self-tapes.
Being a Broadway performer is pretty cool and a lot of hard work, but getting there is even harder. I'm gonna tell you all about it. I'm Adrienne Walker. Welcome to 32 Bar Cut.
There are 4 things you need to focus on when you are taping for any self-tape, but specifically for musical theater auditions, because that's what this video is about. You should be focusing on your camera, your lighting, your sound, and your framing and background. So let's start with the camera. You don't really need any expensive equipment. I haven't used any expensive equipment unless you consider a smartphone expensive equipment. But smartphones nowadays have such amazing cameras in them that you can actually use them for your self-tapes for your auditions. I've actually been in casting offices before, not for musical theater, but for TV and film on camera work. And they have used a smartphone in that audition to tape my audition. So it is a widespread and wide known thing. So if you have a smartphone, at least from the past 3 years or so, I would suggest that you consider using that for your musical theater self-tapes. There are pros and cons to using a smartphone for your self-tapes. One, the sound on a smartphone is not ideal, so you'll need to get a mic, an external mic to bump up and help the sound. And also there's not a lot of editing that you can do on your device. So you will need something outside of your device that will help you edit your final video before you send it over to casting. And I use iMovie for that. If you don't have iMovie, that's okay. You can simply just crop the beginning and the end of your video so that you have the meat of the video rather than you walking over to the camera, turning the camera off, that sort of thing. You want to edit those things out. I'm pretty sure you knew that, but just in case, I'm just saying it all. The second thing you want to focus on is the lighting. And I have done lots of things for lighting. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. This is what has worked for me. In the past, for the past 3 years when I was doing self-tapes for on-camera work, I used a full lighting kit that I got on Amazon. I'll drop that link below if you're curious about that. I wasn't getting very many auditions, so it wasn't so much work to set it up and take it down occasionally. But when I started to get more and more auditions, I'm talking like 3 auditions a week, setting it up and taking it down for each audition became very tedious. I live in an apartment in New York with my husband and my dog. There's not a lot of room. There was no space for us to keep the lighting set up all the time. And so I got a ring light. And I think that a ring light is a great way to put out self-tapes without having a huge setup if you live in a small space and you can't really manage putting it together and taking it down every time you have a self-tape. I use a ring light that has worked perfectly for me. I have the link down below. It has several different settings for you. It has a tripod that can be raised up to the high heavens and lowered down to the floor. It has a nice little pivot that allows you to crank the light forward or crank the light up, depending on what you're filming or taping and how you want your light situated. It has 2 really cool dials, lighting dials, that allow you to warm up the light or cool down the light, depending on what your undertones are or what your natural light is already in the space that you're using. I love this feature. I always use 3400 for my skin tone and it works perfectly for me. It also has a brightness and darkness dial that allows you to make the light extremely bright or midway or barely visible light. So I love that it has those features. I found it to be very helpful in my self-tapes. The one drawback to the ring light is that it kind of casts a ring on your pupils. So if that is troublesome for you or bothers you, I would suggest pushing the ring light further back. The further back it is, the better that lighting issue is. You can also dim the light a bit so that it's not as bright. But I will say that I have used this for the past 9 months and I haven't gotten any complaints from my agents. I've been pinned for a couple of auditions. I've gotten callbacks from a few auditions. So it doesn't seem to be keeping me from getting in the room. Not only does it have all the features I've already mentioned, it also comes with a phone holder, which is perfect for using your smartphone for filming your auditions. And the great thing about the phone holder that comes with this ring light I'm referencing right now because I'm using it to film my episodes. I use it to film all of my episodes, is that it has a really cool feature that allows you to rotate the phone, pivot the phone in any direction that you want, and you can also record in a portrait mode or in landscape. However, when you are doing self-tapes for on camera or for musical theater, you want to make sure that the orientation is always landscape, and that's horizontal orientation. It will not translate well if you use a vertical or portrait orientation for your self-tape. So keep that in mind. Always, always, always landscape, horizontal. But if you're looking for something simple and affordable, I would suggest that you get the ring light, and I've dropped the link down below just so you can check it out. I think it's great. Now we are about to enter the most challenging part of self-tapes at home, especially for musical theater, and that is the sound. So the sound on your smartphone is not going to be the best sound for any type of singing or recording of the voice. So I suggest that you get an external microphone. Some people use lavalier mics, some people use external mics that are connected to their computers. If you're super tech savvy and that's something that you can manage, go for it. If you're like me and not very tech savvy, may I suggest the Shure MV88. So it's actually the mic that I'm using to record this episode as well as all of my episodes. The Shure mic is pretty awesome. It's somewhat affordable. I think it's under $200, but of course I will drop that down below. I'll put the price up somehow. So the Shure mic, I got it on Amazon. I get most of what I use on Amazon. It's just easier that way. This mic comes with an app. So you'll plug the mic into your phone, and for me, I have to take my cover off. And I use an iPhone. I believe that they have something compatible with other phones, but that's something you'll have to look into. But I take my iPhone cover off. That's the only way that I can get this mic inserted in. And then I go to the app, and I'm able to adjust my settings how I need it for whatever I'm recording. So when I'm recording my episodes for you guys, I'll set it onto a conversation or the speech setting. When I'm doing my musical theater auditions, I'll set it on a musical setting. And you can also look into other information about EQ and the gain and how to make sure that you've set it up so that you don't have any vocal distortion and that you don't have any issues with clipping or going out of the range that the mic can handle. And that's all something you can use on your phone. You can download the Motive app. It works with Shure. It's made specifically for Shure, and you can set your phone up and your microphone up that way before you start recording. And something that I do differently for my musical theater auditions that I don't really do for my episodes is that I try to treat the room a little better so that the sound is better and not so echoey. On my episodes, you probably have noticed that my sound is a bit echoey, and that's just because I haven't treated the room. You're just listening to my voice. I'm not really dedicated to making sure that the sound is amazing yet for my episodes. Maybe I will in the future. For musical theater auditions, you want to make sure that you treat the room a bit. So that means you want to have, if you have carpeted floors, great, that's an asset. If you don't, maybe you can bring some rugs in the room or some blankets and lay them on the floor, and on the opposing wall, the wall that you're facing when you are doing your audition, just so that you can dampen some of the sound so it's not so echoey and it doesn't sound like you're in a bathroom or a stairwell. That's going to be really helpful for when you get into singing your auditions. I'm not going to get too deep into sound because, like I said, I'm not a super tech savvy person. I'm learning as I go, but these are just the tools that have worked for me and that I hope work for you when you get ready to lay down your musical theater auditions. Another aspect of musical theater auditions that isn't something you'll come into with self-tapes for on-camera work is your track. So most likely when you're going in for a musical theater audition, you'll have an accompanist. Well, when you're self-taping from home, they don't want you to self-tape a cappella just because you don't have an accompanist at home. So you have a few options in your corner. You can hire someone to create a track for you. You can hire someone to just lay down a piano recording for you. If you don't have access to that, a last resort, and this is a last resort because it's not always going to be the best quality, is to find a karaoke track on YouTube or elsewhere that you can use for your audition. Again, I say this is a last resort. I do not suggest that you use a karaoke track, but if you are at the end of your rope and you have no other options, that is something that you can do. You want to make sure that whatever track you use also fits the parameters of what casting has asked you to do. So if they ask for a full song, make sure that it's a full song. If they ask for a cut of a song, make sure it's a cut of a song. If they ask for specifically 32 bars, make sure it's 32 bars. And also, you can cut up your video. You don't have to have your song straight into your scene, straight into the other scene, straight into another song. You can do this, record the song, next video, record the scene, next video, record the next scene. You can cut it all up like that. Then you can upload it to iMovie, put it all together very nicely, and send it over to casting. You can even use iMovie to maybe drop down a little label underneath as you move from scene 1 to scene 2, or to just put a label on the song. If you don't have those capabilities, that's okay. You can do something that we call a slate. And so at sometime in your audition, it can be before you sing, it can be a separate video that you add on. You'll introduce yourself, where you're located, not your exact address, but for example, I would say, hello, my name is Adrienne Walker, I'm 5'9", and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. Today, I will be singing Raven from Brooklyn the Musical. And then that'll be its own little video, and then you'll go on to sing whatever your song is. For me, it would have been Raven from Brooklyn the Musical, and then I'll go into a scene. So that's just an example of a setup for the sound, and also a little bit of what you would do in the audition as well. Sound is so important because you want them to really hear what you sound like. And iPhones and Androids and any phone microphone is really going to distort the sound. Any belting that you're going to do, any lovely soft subtleties you'll make with your voice will not pick up as well. The other thing that I do when I am doing my self-tapes at home by myself is that I will have my computer playing the track, and I will cue my camera, and then I'll sing over that. And I try to make sure that the sound, I'll do a few tests so that I can make sure that the sound coming from my speakers from my computer, and I do have external speakers on my computer. I have Bose speakers, which is a little better than a computer speaker will be. I turn those Bose speakers on, and that floods the room with the track. Then I have my Shure mic hooked up, and I have it so the projection of what the Shure mic is picking up is focused mainly on me. It's going to pick up the sound in the room, but I really want it to pick up my voice. And then I rig it so that I have a little bit of lead time before the track starts, hit play on my camera, set myself up in my frame, which we're going to talk about next, and then I sing. And then I play it back and I look at it to make sure that everything's right. Now, I am fortunate that I live with a very talented musician and super smart tech guy, so he helps me a lot with getting me prepared for my auditions. But this video is for people who don't have that set up, so that you can understand how you can manage all of the different aspects of doing a self-tape for musical theater at home. Lastly, I want to talk about framing and background. You want them to focus on you, so you want to make sure that your background is clear and free of clutter and photos on the wall and stains on the wall or anything like that. If you have access to extra funds after you've purchased your external mic and your ring light or your lighting kit or whatever you plan on purchasing for this, maybe you can invest in getting a background. There are several different backgrounds available to you. You can do a green screen background, a blue screen background. You can get a nice setup where you hang a sheet, make sure that the sheet is not wrinkled. And there's different things that you can do, but you want to make sure that it is clean and free of anything so that they can focus on you. If you don't have access to purchasing your own background, you might possibly do what we did and paint your wall. Painting our wall was a bit of a commitment, but I am committed to booking work, and so it was worth it to me to paint our wall. And that's making self-tape so easy. You also want to make sure that your framing for a musical theater audition hits at least from your waist to the top of your head. You don't want a full body, because they're not going to be able to see your face and your expression. But you want it wide enough so that they can see your arms move and they can see you take in the space as you emote and tell the story of the song. You don't want it like you don't want the framing to be what it would be for an on-camera audition for TV or film, because those are always a tighter frame. So for an on-camera audition for TV and film, you're going to want to frame from your shoulders or your chest until the top of your head with no extra space above. The same thing for musical theater. You don't want any space above your head. They don't need to see the space above your head. They just want the top of your head to your waist. And you want to make sure that while you are performing that you use the room and use the space. So maybe do a test, because your camera lens is very different from being in the room with someone. So maybe when you are in the room with someone and you look up, it just looks like you're looking up and it looks natural. When you're on camera and you're looking up, it looks like you are looking dramatically up. So maybe you would only look up here, and that's enough. So you want to play with your camera, whatever camera you end up using, and make sure that you're playing to the camera as well as to the room. So it's a bit of a learning curve, but once you get it down, you've got it down. And it is worth it to do a few practices to make sure that your framing is just right. It's those small little subtle changes that really make the difference between one actor and the other. Just something to consider. When I get ready to tape, I set up my ring light, I plug in my microphone and my phone, turn it on Do Not Disturb or airplane mode, and I tape my audition. And it makes it so simple because I don't have to set up a lighting kit. I don't have to set up a background. I just need my life to be simple, because it's enough to memorize the audition and to get it ready and to make sure you're vocally ready. You want to make sure that your camera setup and your tech setup is simple and easy and accessible and reliable, that you know you can always rely on it and it's going to be a surefire win for you. I hope that I have answered your questions on self-tapes for musical theater auditions. If there's anything else you are wanting to know or any other questions you have about self-tape auditions for musical theater, leave a comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that like button. Let me know what else you want to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.